Peter Chang here, and welcome to part 22 of our X-Factory SCX60 CF build. And in this step, we're going to have to Dremel and cut this back part so that we can actually mount the modified back bumpers. So we have to modify this part by trimming it apart, so just watch where my hand's going. And this is the part that we're keeping, and we're throwing the rest of this part away. So if you're a little squeamish about this, just watch the video. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab the Dremel and start cutting this apart here. Now that I've finished cutting it apart, I'm going to go ahead and then attach this to my rear bumper. So I just want to show you that what this part actually looks like after you finish modifying the cut, and just so that it becomes a little bit more intuitive, basically. And you use the same screws that you would attach before a modification, basically. So it's kind of unusual that you would have to make this modification. But then again, we're making such a radical change by converting the rear motor to the mid motor that the transmission's like in the way. So in this case, it's kind of an interesting way of putting the bumper back on. So as you can see, it still retains those two screws, and then it just looks like a shortened part of the original part that we have modified. Now we're going to go ahead and finish completing this bumper by adding the other two braces. And this time we're going to just go ahead and complete the bottom two braces. So once these bottom two go on, this set will be complete. And we could attach it to the that white spacer by that rear shock tower. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab the stock cap head screw, and if you're already using this with the SC10 and you're doing the conversion, you should have two of the 40/40 screws lying around somewhere. Or if you're building this from scratch like me, I highly recommend the Tony Screws kit for this part. And as you can see, this is looking fairly normal. The stock configuration is coming together pretty well. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and screw this down. I don't want to over tighten, because I might need to adjust some setting. So I'm just going to go ahead and just screw it just tight enough so that everything is locked in fine. Over the course of racing, just because you get bumped by other short course trucks during racing, you should think in terms of just checking and double checking the construction or the screws to make sure that nothing is loosened. I find that after hard days of racing, over time the rear bumper does loosen for me. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and just attach these four hinges to the white brace behind the rear shock tower, and that's how we attach the rear bumper. So as you can see, the rear bumper is not a object of complexity. Really, it's just super well engineered and rather simplified at this point. So we just need to make sure that I'm just going to double check the slipper gear, making sure that everything's okay before I put on the rear bumper, because if I do, it's not like the end of the world to work on the for transmission. But once again, I just don't want to do any unnecessary rework if I don't have to. So if I could save a step, I'm going to save a step. and since I have everything apart and we're building everything out, it also just pays off to check and recheck to make sure that everything is working okay. So what you're going to notice is that as you start screwing this in, you may also want to choose a shorter head screw. I just have a unusually long stock head screw. But remember, you may not need to use the stock screw because just because of the configuration, it might be such a radical reconfiguration that you might want to try using different parts and components, or if you're like me, as you're building it out, you get interested in certain parts of it. So some parts of the build do take longer, just because you have different ideas about the build. Just want to let you know, in this case, it is just fairly straightforward. Modify that part and those components and get building, basically. So I'm just going to tighten. At this point, once again, I'm just not going to over tighten until I'm 100% sure that everything's working okay. Also, I shouldn't say over tighten, because when you work on plastic and plastic, if you over tighten, there's really nothing for the screws to grip into but other plastic. So as a result, if you're working heavily in plastics, things just tend to wear out. So it's not like things become obsolete or everything biodegrades on you. It is just because you over threaded something. So just so you're aware, just double check to make sure that you're not threading too hard on everything. And this rear bumper is coming along pretty well. I'm pleasantly surprised to see it start take shape. So without the bumper, your short course truck just seems a tad incomplete, basically. Also, the nice thing with the bumper is that it adds a sense of scale detail to your short course truck. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking like, well, you know, like I'm not sure if I want to modify the part, or you're not sure if you wanted to add in the bumper, I would say go ahead, do this part, add in the bumper. It is one of the most fun parts of this build, and it also signifies that we're getting fairly close to the end of this build as well too. So just so you're aware, have fun with this part of the build, but also just note that it is kind of taxing because you have to modify the rear bumper, but it is worth adding that layer of realism to your short course truck, because without that bumper, your truck seems less scale and less realistic. Alright, here is the shot of the completed bumper, and everything is looking really cool. Thanks for watching, and remember, everything matters.